The city of Therion floated high above the clouds, a shining fortress of glass and steel. Its towers sparkled under the twin suns, and its streets buzzed with people who whispered about one thing: the dragon trial. For generations, the trial had decided who would rule the dragon-bonded realm. Every heir had faced the ancient dragon, Drakthar, and every heir had failed. Some were scorched by fire, others thrown aside by the dragon's massive claws. No one remembered a winner. The streets were full of tension today. People crowded the balconies and walkways, their eyes fixed on the trial grounds below. The roar of the ancient dragon echoed across the city, shaking windows and rattling doors. From above, Drakthar's shadow swept over the crowd like a storm. People trembled, but none dared to leave. Today was another heir's turn, and all expected the same fate. Kalen, a small boy of 10, watched from the edge of the city. He lived in the shadow of Therion, in the crowded alleys where humans like him struggled to survive. Orphaned years ago, he had learned to move silently to avoid attention, to survive on scraps and small jobs. He was small, thin, and often ignored by the city's residents. But Kalen had something no heir had ever had: curiosity. He loved stories about dragons, and he believed, even secretly, that humans could achieve greatness if they dared. Today, Kalen had climbed to his usual lookout on a broken tower near the trial grounds. From here he could see everything. The royal carriage arrived, shining white and gold, and from it stepped the heir. He was tall, proud, and dressed in fine robes that shimmered in the sunlight. His face was full of confidence, as if the dragon would bow to him like everyone else. But Kalen noticed something strange. He looked nervous and his hands trembled slightly. The crowd quieted as the heir approached the dragon's arena. Drakthar lay coiled in the center, his scales glinting like molten metal. Smoke curled from his nostrils and his eyes glowed like embers. The air smelled of fire and ozone. The city had long learned to fear this place. Kings and queens had trained their heirs, but none had survived the dragon's trial. The heir took a deep breath and stepped forward. He raised his hand, trying to appear brave. Drakthar lifted his massive head and sniffed the air. The ground shook as the dragon rose to his full height, wings spreading wide. Every person watching held their breath. Kalen's heart raced. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He had never been this close to a dragon before, not like this. The dragon roared, and the sound shook Kalen to his core. The heir shouted commands, tried to move confidently, and attempted to control Drakthar with the old rituals passed down through generations. But the dragon was not impressed. With a swift movement, Drakthar struck, sending the heir tumbling to the ground. Smoke and dust filled the arena as people gasped. Some tried to cheer, but the fear was too strong. Kalen watched in silence, his small hands gripping the edge of the tower. He felt a strange sympathy for the heir, though he had never met him. He knew the heir had been trained, prepared, and expected to succeed. Yet here he was, defeated in seconds. Kalen realized then that the trial was not about strength or skill alone. It was about something deeper, something the heirs had never understood. As the crowd murmured and the royal guards hurried to lift the heir from the arena, Kalen noticed a small movement at the edge of Drakthar's gaze. The dragon's eyes seemed to flicker with curiosity, as if he sensed something new, something the heirs had never had. Kalen's pulse quickened. He did not fully understand it, but a spark of hope ignited inside him. He returned to the narrow streets and back alleys, thinking about the dragon and the heir. He imagined what it would be like to face such a creature. Most children his age would have turned away in terror, but Kalen felt drawn to it. He imagined a human standing before the ancient dragon, not with arrogance, not with weapons, but with courage and heart. The thought thrilled him. That night, the city of Therion slept uneasily. The dragon rested in his arena, smoke curling from his nostrils, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Guards patrolled the streets, whispering about the heir's failure. Meanwhile, Kalen lay in the small room he called home, staring at the ceiling. He had no family, no title, no power, but he had something the heirs did not: the will to try when others failed. Somewhere deep inside, Kalen made a quiet promise to himself. One day he would face the ancient dragon. He would not rely on birthright or training. He would rely on courage, cleverness, and heart. And maybe, just maybe, he could succeed where every heir had fallen. Kalen closed his eyes and drifted into a restless sleep, dreaming of dragons, flames, and a world where a small human could do the impossible. Kalen woke before sunrise, the city of Therion still wrapped in mist. The trial's echoes from the previous day still lingered in his mind: the roar of the dragon, the heir thrown aside, the gasps of the crowd. His small heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. He could not stop thinking about the ancient dragon. Something about that massive, glowing-eyed creature had touched him, stirred a feeling he could not explain. He moved quietly through the narrow alleys, careful not to wake the few neighbors who still slept in the small homes stacked against the city walls. Kalen's curiosity was stronger than his caution. He remembered the stories of hidden places beneath Therion, caves where dragons had nested long before humans built their towers. Most people said those places were forbidden, dangerous, and cursed. But Kalen did not care about danger. He wanted to see the truth for himself. The entrance to the caves was small, half-hidden by jagged rocks and vines. Kalen crouched low and slipped inside, carrying only a small lantern and a satchel with food. The air grew colder as he moved deeper, dripping water echoing around him. The light from his lantern danced on the walls, revealing strange carvings of dragons and humans, old symbols that told stories no one remembered. He paused to study them, tracing a finger along the shapes. Something about the carvings seemed alive, like they were waiting for someone who could understand. Then he saw it, a faint glow coming from deeper in the cave. Kalen's eyes widened. He moved closer, careful not to make a sound. The glow came from a small nest of dragon eggs, each one pulsing softly like it had a heartbeat. Kalen's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so alive. The eggs were enormous, shimmering with colors he had no names for. One egg, larger than the others, glowed brighter, almost as if it were calling to him. Kalen knelt by the eggs, unsure what to do. He could feel the warmth of life inside, the faint tremble of the unborn dragon. His mind raced. He had always been told humans should not touch dragons, that to approach one was to risk death. Yet he did not feel fear in that moment. Instead, he felt a strange connection, a sense that the dragon could understand him. Slowly he reached out, his small hand hovering above the largest egg. He whispered softly words he did not know he could speak. "I won't hurt you. I want to understand you." For a moment nothing happened. Then the egg quivered under his hand, sending a small ripple through the nest. Kalen jumped back, eyes wide, heart racing. He had never expected the egg to respond. Another quiver followed, stronger this time. Kalen realized the dragon inside was alive in more ways than one. It could sense him, maybe even trust him. He smiled, a mixture of awe and wonder. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the cave. Kalen froze. It was the low rumble of the ancient dragon above, his deep, resonant growl reaching through stone and earth. The hairs on Kalen's neck stood up. He knew the dragon could sense him even here. Panic rose for a moment, but then he remembered the spark he had felt the day before. The dragon had hesitated when facing the air. Maybe it could sense a difference in him, too. Kalen's courage, small but firm, grew. He returned to the eggs, sitting cross-legged beside the glowing one. Hours passed as he watched, whispered, and waited. He fed the nest small scraps of fruit he had brought, humming quietly to keep himself calm. With each passing moment he felt the bond grow. The dragon inside the egg seemed to respond, trembling with each word, leaning slightly toward his hand. Kalen had discovered something the heirs had never known. Dragons did not just fear strength, they felt heart. Night fell, and the cave darkened except for the soft glow of the eggs. Kalen lay down beside the largest one, eyes tracing the patterns on its surface. He imagined the day he might face the ancient dragon, not as an heir, but as a human who had learned patience, understanding, and courage. The thought thrilled him, made him feel alive in a way he had never felt before. Time passed, though Kalen did not notice. Every sound, every shadow made him alert, but he did not feel alone. The bond with the egg filled him with purpose. He understood now that his life as an orphan, overlooked and underestimated, had prepared him for this moment. The city outside might fear dragons, might fail, might watch others fall, but Kalen felt ready to try where no one else could. A faint crack echoed from the largest egg. Kalen's heart leapt. He leaned closer, careful not to startle it. The shell trembled, lines forming as the dragon inside moved. A small golden claw emerged, followed by a tiny, scaled head with bright, intelligent eyes. Kalen gasped. The dragon inside was alive, awake and looking at him directly. The bond they had formed in silence, in patience and courage, was real. It was beginning. Kalen smiled, a mixture of fear and hope. He whispered softly, "We'll do this together. I will face the ancient dragon and we will show them what humans can do." The tiny dragon blinked at him, its small roar echoing in the cave like a promise. For the first time, Kalen felt that he was not just an orphan, not just a small boy overlooked by the world. He was someone who could change everything, someone who could face what no one else had survived. And in that quiet, glowing cave, a new story began. one that would test Kalen, the small human, against the oldest, fiercest dragon of all. Kalen spent the next days in the hidden cave, caring for the small dragon he had hatched from the glowing egg. He named it Ember for the faint fire that sometimes danced across its tiny scales. Ember was curious, playful, and surprisingly intelligent. Every day, Kalen taught it small lessons: how to move quietly, how to trust, and how to respond to his commands. In return, Ember seemed to understand him, tilting its head as if it knew what Kalen was thinking. Yet Kalen knew their time in hiding could not last forever. The ancient dragon, DracoWar, had not forgotten the humans or their trials. It had ruled the skies above Therion for centuries, testing each heir and watching them fail. Kalen had seen the fear in the eyes of the princes and princesses. He had watched them stumble, and fall before the massive creature. If he wanted to face DracoWar himself, he would need courage, skill, and wits. One morning, Kalen climbed to the mouth of the cave, looking toward the city below. The sun reflected off the towers of Therion, glinting on the streets and balconies. Guards patrolled as usual, unaware that a small human boy and his dragon were hiding nearby. Kalen knew that facing DracoWar would not be about weapons or armor. It would be about understanding the dragon, about earning its attention and trust. Most heirs had tried strength, intimidation, or clever tricks, and all had failed. Kalen had something they did not: patience, heart, and Ember by his side. He spent hours practicing with Ember, learning how to communicate without words. He learned to read the dragon's eyes, its posture, even the faint sounds it made. Sometimes Ember would puff a tiny flame and Kalen would laugh, ducking to avoid the heat. They were growing together, learning together, preparing for the day when they would face DracoWar. Kalen began to imagine that day, planning carefully. He knew the city would not welcome a human in the arena, but he also knew that if he hesitated too long, someone else would be chosen and failure would continue. The opportunity came sooner than expected. One afternoon, the elders of Therion announced another trial. This time, no heir had been ready, and the city was growing restless. Kalen knew it was risky, but he also knew it might be his only chance. He whispered to Ember, "We have to try. This is the moment." Ember chirped and flapped its small wings, as if understanding the seriousness of what was to come. Kalen made his way through the alleys toward the trial grounds, carrying Ember hidden in a satchel. He kept low, moving quickly and silently, avoiding the patrolling guards. The crowd at the arena had gathered already, buzzing with whispers. No one noticed the small boy slipping through the back, and Kalen was grateful. The heir was nowhere in sight. He had been defeated again, and the elders had grown desperate. At the edge of the arena, Kalen paused. DracoWar's enormous form lay coiled in the center, scales glinting, smoke curling from his nostrils. The dragon's eyes were half closed as if resting, but Kalen knew better. DracoWar could sense everything. Kalen took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew that if he failed, it could mean death. But he also knew that Ember was ready, and so was he. He stepped forward slowly, making no sudden movements. The crowd fell silent as the boy approached the dragon, carrying Ember gently in his arms. DracoWar lifted his massive head, eyes glowing, wings twitching. The roar that followed was low but powerful, shaking the ground. Kalen froze, his legs trembling. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to give up. But he held Ember close and whispered, "We are not here to fight. We are here to understand." DracoWar sniffed the air, massive nostrils flaring. His eyes narrowed, studying the boy and the tiny dragon. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen a human approach DracoWar without trembling in fear. Kalen felt a strange calm inside him. He took another step, then another. Ember chirped softly, nudging Kalen's cheek with its snout. Together they moved closer to the ancient dragon. The dragon lowered its head slightly, inspecting them both. Kalen felt the heat of DracoWar's breath, the power in his eyes. He did not flinch. He knelt, placing Ember carefully on the ground, and spoke softly, "We mean no harm. We only want to learn, to understand, to be trusted." DracoWar's massive claws scraped the ground, sending a cloud of dust into the air. The boy held his breath, waiting for the strike that might never come, or might come too soon. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, DracoWar leaned back, observing. The massive dragon did not attack. He did not roar again. Instead, he tilted his head, watching the boy and his small dragon with curiosity. Kalen's heart leapt. This was the first moment in centuries that the ancient dragon had paused before an opponent. He realized, with a mix of fear and hope, that perhaps humans could succeed, if they approached with courage, patience, and heart. Kalen smiled, a small, steady smile. He knew this was only the beginning. The trial had begun, but it was not about strength. It was about trust, understanding, and the courage to face what no one else dared. And for the first time, Kalen felt that humans, even a small orphan boy, could challenge the impossible. Kalen stayed on the arena floor, his small hands trembling slightly, but his heart was steady. Ember, the little dragon he had raised, chirped softly and pressed close to him. The crowd had fallen silent, watching the boy and the ancient dragon in awe and disbelief. No human had ever approached DracoWar this way. Most had come with weapons, arrogance, or fear, and all had failed. Kalen had none of that. He had courage, patience, and something stronger than fear: understanding. DracoWar lowered his massive head closer, the heat of his breath washing over Kalen in waves. The boy could feel the dragon's power in his bones, the raw energy that had sent every air before him sprawling. Kalen's mind raced, thinking of the tales he had heard, the stories of dragons that could burn a city in a single breath. He kept his eyes steady, not staring into DracoWar's glowing amber gaze, but also not looking away. "You are not afraid," DracoWar rumbled, his voice echoing in Kalen's mind, though no sound came from his throat. Kalen froze, understanding that this was not a normal dragon. It was speaking to him, not with words, but with thought, with presence, with expectation. He swallowed hard. I am," he said quietly, though the words were more for himself than for the dragon. "But I want to try. I want to understand you." DracoWar studied him for a long moment. The boy noticed the dragon's wings shift slightly, casting massive shadows across the arena. The crowd held its breath. Some of the elders whispered in disbelief, "No human, no child, could survive this." But Kalen did not listen to them. His mind was focused entirely on the dragon, on the life inside Ember, and on the strange, thrilling sense that something new was happening, something no heir had ever achieved. Kalen took a deep breath and knelt fully on the stone floor, putting himself lower than DracoWar, not in fear but in respect. He extended a hand slowly, palm open, toward the massive claw of the dragon. Ember stepped forward, small and brave, and brushed against DracoWar's scaled leg. The ancient dragon's eyes flickered, first with caution, then with curiosity. Kalen's heart thudded in his chest. The dragon was testing him, seeing if he could remain calm, steady, and fearless. "I will not hurt you," Kalen whispered. His voice was soft, almost a hiss among the murmurs of the crowd. "I only want to understand. I only want to help." DracoWar leaned closer, and Kalen felt the vibrations of his breath ripple through the floor. Ember chirped again, looking up at Kalen as if to encourage him. Together, human and little dragon, they were facing the impossible. The arena was tense for long moments. The crowd could not move, could not speak. The other heirs had failed because they thought strength was everything. Kalen realized that strength alone would never work. He had to show the ancient dragon something else: trust, patience, and courage. With every movement, every whisper, Kalen focused not on surviving but on connecting. He felt Ember's small claws press into his legs and felt hope bloom inside him. Then, something incredible happened. DracoWar lowered his head all the way to the floor, his massive eyes studying Kalen with intense focus. The ground shook as he shifted, but he made no aggressive move. The crowd gasped. No one had ever seen a dragon do this. The elders whispered nervously to each other, unsure if this was a trick, a trap, or the impossible happening before their eyes. Kalen reached out, slowly, and touched DracoWar's enormous snout. The heat was overwhelming yet not harmful. Ember chirped and nudged Kalen's arm as if reminding him to stay steady. The ancient dragon tilted his head and exhaled a small stream of warm smoke. Kalen felt a thrill rush through him. The dragon was not attacking. The dragon was listening. He could feel it thinking, feeling, considering. He had never imagined this, not in all his dreams. Minutes passed like hours. Kalen stayed kneeling, calm, even as DracoWar's massive eyes bore into him. Ember curled around his legs, soft and small, a living reminder that Kalen was not alone. Then finally DracoWar made a sound, a low rumble almost like a purr. He nudged Kalen gently with his snout. The boy's eyes widened. The impossible had begun. He had earned the dragon's attention and perhaps even its trust. The crowd erupted in whispers, some cheering, some gasping in shock. Kalen barely noticed. He was focused entirely on the dragon before him. He whispered again softly, "We can do this together. You and I. We can show them humans are more than they believe." Ember chirped, and the dragon's massive head lowered further, until it rested gently on the stone beside Kalen. Kalen felt warmth, awe, and fear all at once. He realized that taming a dragon was not about force or fear. It was about connection, about showing courage where others had only shown arrogance. DracoWar's great eyes watched him, studying every heartbeat, every movement. The boy knew that this was only the beginning, but for the first time humans, small, ordinary, overlooked humans, were showing that they could face the impossible and survive. Kalen smiled faintly. He touched DracoWar again, more confidently this time. Ember chirped proudly beside him. The arena fell silent again, except for the low rumble of the ancient dragon. Kalen's heart swelled. He knew that tomorrow the world would see something it had never seen before. A human facing the ancient dragon, not with weapons but with courage, patience, and heart. And for the first time in centuries, the impossible felt possible. The sun rose over Therion, casting golden light across the floating city. Today was not like any other day. Word had spread that a small human boy had faced the ancient dragon without fear, without weapons, without any of the arrogance or strength the heirs had relied on. The city buzzed with whispers and disbelief. Everyone wanted to see this human, Kalen, and the dragon DracoWar that no one had ever tamed. Kalen and Ember stood at the edge of the arena, the enormous dragon coiled calmly in the center. DracoWar's eyes glowed softly, smoke curling from his nostrils, wings twitching with restrained power. Kalen felt the weight of the crowd's gaze, the pressure of centuries of failure behind him, and the responsibility of this moment. He was small, an orphan, overlooked by society, yet here he was, facing the greatest dragon the world had ever known. He took a deep breath, feeling Ember press against his leg. Together they had prepared for this moment in the hidden cave, learning to understand dragons in ways no heir ever could. Kalen stepped forward slowly, each movement deliberate. The crowd fell silent as they watched. The elders whispered nervously. Guards shifted uneasily. The tension in the city was almost unbearable. DracoWar's massive eyes followed Kalen. The dragon's body radiated power, every scale gleaming, muscles rippling under the sun. He could crush Kalen in a single movement, yet he remained still, curious, waiting. Kalen knelt slowly, setting Ember down beside him. His small hand reached toward the dragon's massive snout, palm open. He spoke softly, words meant only for DracoWar. "I will not harm you. I only wish to understand, to earn your trust." The dragon leaned down, his warm breath washing over Kalen. The boy did not flinch. Ember chirped, small flames flickering from its mouth in encouragement. DracoWar's eyes narrowed, then softened. Slowly, carefully, he nudged Kalen with his massive snout. The boy felt the weight, the immense power, yet also a strange gentleness. It was as if the dragon was saying, "I see you. You're different." The crowd gasped and some whispered, "Impossible, it cannot be." Kalen ignored them. He focused entirely on DracoWar, feeling the dragon's heartbeat beneath the massive body. He felt the life, the intelligence, the centuries of experience, and realized that taming a dragon was not about dominance. It was about courage, understanding, and heart. Kalen slowly stood, keeping his eyes steady on DracoWar. He raised a hand and gestured to Ember. The small dragon chirped and flew up, landing lightly on DracoWar's massive head. The ancient dragon shifted slightly but allowed it, eyes following every movement. Kalen felt a thrill of hope. The impossible was happening. The crowd erupted into murmurs, some fearful, some amazed. Then Kalen climbed onto DracoWar's foreleg, careful with every step. The dragon rumbled, low and steady, but did not move violently. Kalen reached the dragon's back and finally climbed atop its massive spine. He felt the power beneath him, the sheer size and strength of the creature that had defeated generations of heirs. Yet he felt no fear, only connection. He whispered to DracoWar, "We can do this together. You and I." DracoWar exhaled slowly, smoke rising into the sky, then gave a low, resonant roar. The crowd gasped, their eyes wide. Slowly, deliberately, the dragon lifted into the air, wings unfolding like mountains against the sunlight. Kalen held tight, feeling the wind whip through his hair, feeling the power of the dragon beneath him. He realized that for the first time in history, a human had earned a dragon's trust and respect. The city erupted below in cheers. The elders were stunned, the guards silent with awe. Kalen and DracoWar soared above the towers of Therion, Ember perched lightly on his shoulder. People pointed, some with tears in their eyes, others with disbelief. Kalen could see the fear and respect in every face. Humans, the small, overlooked creatures of the city, had achieved what none had thought possible. Kalen felt a sense of pride, not in himself, but in the courage and heart that had brought him here. He had faced the impossible and he had not relied on power or privilege. He had relied on empathy, patience, and understanding. The world had been wrong about humans for centuries and now, finally, the truth was clear. Even the smallest human could change the world. As the sun climbed higher, Kalen and Drakthar landed gently in the arena. Kalen dismounted carefully and knelt before the dragon, showing respect. Drakthar lowered his massive head, nudging the boy gently. Ember chirped and danced around them. The crowd erupted in joyous cheers, and Kalen felt the weight of centuries lift from the city. Humans had been seen as weak and powerless, yet now they were celebrated not just for courage but for heart. Kalen looked out at the city, the towers shining, the people cheering. He felt a new sense of purpose. He knew this was only the beginning. Humans and dragons could work together, could learn together, could face challenges together. He had faced the impossible and won, not because he was strong or royal or favored, but because he had courage, heart, and the will to try where others had failed. That night, Kalen returned to the hidden cave, not as an orphan, not as a child overlooked by the city, but as a hero, a symbol of human potential. Ember curled against him, warm and happy. Drakthar lay nearby, massive and still, watching the boy with quiet approval. Kalen knew that the future held many challenges, but he also knew that humans could face them all as long as they had courage, heart, and hope. And in the skies above Therion, the ancient dragon roared once more, a sound of respect, of understanding, and of a new beginning, for humans, for dragons, and for the impossible made real.